It has always been amazing to me how easy it is for people to say someone should be fired, their livelihood taken away. Ho hum, just fire John Farrell. Why? We don't like him. That's reason enough. Right?
Shut the fuck up and listen to me!
Welcome to #Dave Speaks.
Welcome back. My name is Dave. I'm one-third of the nerds on the Boston Sports Nerds podcast, and I am the host of #Dave Speaks. And you're now listening to another episode of #Dave Speaks. This one's going back in the direction of the Boston Red Sox. I kind of ventured out, did a couple other things for a while. A while ago, I did a Dustin Pedroia, Dave Speaks, where he fell victim to an episode of #Dave Speaks. Right now, I'm going to go after Nick Cafardo, the Boston Globe, dummy article. That's what you heard. That was a text-to-speech program quoting Nick Cafardo's article in the Boston Globe. Came out October 10th. I make sure I give credit where credit's due, especially when it's dog crap. So stupid. The whole thing for me is like, John Farrell had to be fired. This didn't come out of left field. This didn't come out of the fact that I don't like him. Some people don't like him. It's not because he's unpopular. It's because he's not a good manager. And he lets guys like fucking Dustin Pedroia go crazy.
Can I go home?
Like, you look at some of the moments where managers get fired. Like, managers don't necessarily get fired based on performance all the time. Like sometimes, sure, if you're always 70 and 92, then yeah, you're probably going to get fired. Baseball's a different sport than football, but Jeff Fisher got a job at 8-8 forever. 7-9, 7-9, 7-9, 8-8, whatever. And you can be mediocre performance-wise and keep a job. A lot of times, especially in baseball, at specific moments, I think it's an interesting thing that in baseball they're referred to as managers as opposed to coaches. Because they have coaches, batting coaches, pitching coaches, whatever. So, as a manager, how do you manage situations? In my real day job, I do management. How do you manage scenarios? How do you manage personalities? How do you manage crisis? How do you manage chaos? If you can look me dead in my fucking eyes and tell me John Farrell managed the Boston Red Sox really well, then I'm looking in the eyes of a fucking liar. What did John Farrell do well? Win some baseball games with a team that had no pop at all? Okay. Yeah, sure. A year ago, a team that had no pitching other than Rick Porcello. Yeah, okay, sure. But what you're saying is that he managed to win games like the players didn't win the games? And I'm not doing a one-way avenue with this because I also believe that the players lost the games. The players are 1-6 in the playoffs for 2 years. So is John Farrell. Think about the moments. Think about the one thing that happened with managers that have taken place over our lifetime as Red Sox fans. Right? Let's go back. Probably the most famous one would be Grady Little. A specific moment. Like a very individual moment. There's little numbers here. Grady Little left Pedro Martinez in Game 7 for way too long. And then he got fired. He got fired because he left a pitcher in too long. Let me think. John Farrell left Chris Sale in the 8th inning with your back against the wall, game 4. You're down 2-1. You're up 1 run. Maybe they were tied at the time. No, I believe they were up 1 run. And Chris Sale comes back out in the 8th inning after pitching 3 days ago? 4 days ago on short rest? You got Chris Sale going 5 innings, 6 innings, however long. Comes in relief. You got him going into the 8th. Gives up the run. And then you got Craig Kimbrell, who you beat the shit out of all year. Until Jared Carabas wrote a story about how you're using him too much. And then all of a sudden, oh, no, we just changed the way that we do things. You got called out by guest of the Boston Sports Nerds podcast, Rich Keefe, about Jerry Carabas' story, and everything changes after that. Craig Kimbrell's numbers or appearances, innings, pitches, whatever, go way down. But you beat the shit out of that guy all year. You backed into the playoffs so much you could hear the beeping. I mean, they were in full-blown reverse, like just stumbling, bumbling their way into the postseason. And boop, 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 backing on in, backing into the playoffs, to the point where you had to pitch Chris Sale at game 155, 156, and then again, you had to pitch him one more time before the end of the year because you couldn't put together a win. You couldn't manage a win. Manager, where you manage some wins with low-powered offenses and not great pitching. Manager, right? So let's look at the moment. Grady Little leaves Pedro in too long, gets tagged, ties up, whatever. The Yankees win the series. Came down to Game 7. Came down to a moment. Grady Little mismanaged the moment and got fired. Grady Little, mind you, won more games that year. In 2003, he won more games than John Farrell did the year that he got canned. John Farrell had 97 wins once in his career. It's his only plus 95 plus win season, which Grady Little had that year, was 95 and 67. John Farrell has a 97 win season. His only 95 plus win season was the year they won a championship with a team that he didn't build, with a team that I think so desperately needed something other than Bobby Valentine, in a team that quite frankly wasn't that good and was a Cinderella story and caught absolute fire. And, mind you, oh yeah, David Ortiz batted like 6,000% in the World Series and the postseason. Carried. Team was carried by David Ortiz that year. There's not a moment in that postseason where I thought, man, John Farrell really just managed that situation really well. You know what John Farrell did the year that they won a championship was get out of the way of David Ortiz and let him do his thing. Really, because there was nothing he could have, nothing was getting in the way of that. Grady Little, 95 and 67, with a career 6-6 in the postseason for the Boston Red Sox. That's in 2 years, mind you. He was the Red Sox manager for 2 years. 6 playoff losses, 6 playoff wins. In the past 2 years for John Farrell, 1 playoff win, 6 playoff losses. So Grady Little accomplished 5 more wins in the postseason over 2 years. Actually, he did it in 1 year. He did it in 2003. They didn't make the playoffs the year before at 93 and 69, which, oh, by the way, is the same record that the Boston Red Sox have had for the past 2 years. Grady Little, 93 and 69 in 2002, and then 95 and 67. The past 2 years for John Farrell was 93 and 69, and, 93 and 69. Grady Little won more playoff games and had just as many losses in an extra series. He had 3 wins in the first round, 3 wins in the second round, and he lost 4 games in one round. And lost 2 in the other. So, a playoff record isn't everything, right? Can't be. Can't be, because if playoff record was everything, then John Farrell should definitely be fucking fired. There's no doubt about that. Guy has 22 playoff wins in 5 years, which is not bad sounding, except for the fact that 11 of them, I'm sorry, I said 22. John Farrell has 12 playoff wins over 5 years, which doesn't sound awful, except for the fact that he got 11 of them in 1 year. He's won 1 playoff game in 4 years. He's 12-11 in the postseason, which isn't awful, except for he did 11 of them in 1 year. This kind of brings me to like the Brady argument, where when Brady had 4 championships and Montana was 4-0, and people had the frickin' balls to say, well, Montana's 4-0 in championships. You know, Brady's 4-2. He's got a couple blemishes. So it's better to not make the Super Bowl 6 times and only go to the Super Bowl 4 times. That's better than going to 6. That's crazy to me. You're telling me it's better for Tom Brady to have lost an AFC Championship 2 times as opposed to win playoff games? Isn't that the point? Win playoff games? So this whole like, oh, Montana was 4-0. Yeah, John Farrell's got 12 playoff wins, but you only won 1 championship, and you only got 1 win in all the other years. And I'm not saying, oh, well, it'd be better if he didn't make the playoffs. No, he made the playoffs. He's actually won the division more times than any other Red Sox manager, which is a fucking really weird stat. He has 3 division titles, only Red Sox manager in history to do that, and even weirder, which, I mean, even with Terry Francona, you would think this had to be true, but John Farrell is the only manager to win back-to-back division titles for the Boston Red Sox. That doesn't speak a whole lot to John Farrell, by the way. That has a whole hell of a lot more to do with the Boston Red Sox managerial history than it does with John Farrell being some great manager. Like, don't kudos this guy because he won 93 games 2 years in a row. 93 games ain't bad. I'm not knocking it. But it's not like, oh, you're the best Red Sox manager ever. Moments. It all comes down to moments. What's another one? Who's another guy? Terry Francona. What was the moment for him? Chicken and beer, right? It wasn't a specific, isolated incident in time, but it was a moment that covered a period of baseball for them, for the Red Sox, back in 2012. Sorry, 2011. Sorry about that. He went 90-72 that year. 3 games worse than your John Farrell. He didn't make the playoffs, and he got fired that year. Why did he get fired that year? Because he let his locker room get away from him. They weren't an ultra-competitive team. It was one of the biggest September collapses ever in baseball history. They went like, whatever it was, 6-14 or whatever. They had a real sizable lead in the division, in the standings, and they puked it away. But the moment, the thing we remember, you say chicken and beer to any Red Sox fan, they'll tell you, oh yeah, fucking Josh Beckett, John Farrell, or not John Farrell, Terry Francona, John Lackey, those guys. That's what comes up. When you say chicken and beer, everyone knows exactly what you're talking about. That's the moment for me. Does that sound fucking familiar? You lose control of your locker room. The players are doing what they want. You got fucking knuckleheads like David Price screaming at, berating, and cursing at a Hall of Famer that, oh, by the way, works for your team. He's employed by NESN, which is owned partially by the Red Sox. So, a coworker, to some extent, curses him out, goes crazy. Dustin Pedroia is standing there in the background clapping his hands like a maniac. You got the whole plane doing a bunch of this. And I'm sitting there like, where the fuck is the leadership? And then you got the fucking balls a month and a half later to stand up there like, hey, who's taking questions now? Me. I'm the leader. Hear me roar. Watch me thump my fucking chest and not do a thing except for bat 125 in the divisional series and be part of the problem. That's exactly what I said in my last one. Dustin Pedroia has been a part of the problem since there's been one in Boston. Grady Little leaves Pedro in too long. Gets fired. John Farrell leaves Chris Sale in too long. Ignores the fact that they acquired Addison Reed for a specific fucking reason. He got fired. Terry Francona loses his locker room. Players go crazy. You have a mutiny on your hands. Got fired. John Farrell let David Price, of all people, be the voice of reason in your locker room and act like a goddamn fool when you got a ton of young players that are probably impressionable. You got a little mutiny on your hands. You have some Red Sox versus Dennis Eckersley. Okay. John Farrell got fired. John Farrell won 3 division titles. Sure. Fine. John Farrell was a manager of a team that won a World Series. I don't even like saying John Farrell won that World Series because I quite frankly, in the really rare circumstance where I say one person did something, David Ortiz won that World Series. John Farrell had 2 last place finishes. John Farrell went up and down the standings year to year. John Farrell had 2 last place finishes in back-to-back years, right? So the 2012 Boston Red Sox, under the leadership of Bobby Valentine, and before we start really talking about Bobby Valentine here, you can swallow your cyanide, you can load up your ammo, you can put a bullet in your brain, because Bobby Valentine was never supposed to be a good manager for the Boston Red Sox. Absolutely not. He was a fucking ticket grab. He was a change of culture guy. Didn't work. Was never going to. I think that was that stooge Larry Lucchino who really wanted him. Bobby Valentine doesn't work. That didn't work. That was not the thing. But I will say this. Bobby Valentine did only win, or he only lost 2 more games than the 2014 Boston Red Sox under John Farrell. So let's do this. In 2012, the Boston Red Sox win 69 games. Last place in the division. In 2013, the Red Sox win 97 games. Win the World Series. First place in the division. 2014, they won 71 games. So they went 69, 97, 71, follow that up with a 78 in last place again. Doesn't it look like it's not the norm? There seems to be a common denominator with the Boston Red Sox, except for 2013. 2 bad years with Farrell, 1 with Valentine, 1 great year with Farrell. If it was John Farrell that did that, why did they drop 26 games from year to year? It was 71, 78, 69, 71, 78. They're all right there. They're all within 9 games of each other. It's because the team wasn't good. In 2013, they were lightning in a bottle. And David Ortiz was a man on a mission. That World Series win for me has nothing to do with John Farrell. John Farrell let Dustin Pedroia do that stupid, I'm the captain, I'm the hero, I'm the leader. Look at me. For what? Why? What did that speech do? You know who should have done that? John Farrell. He should have came out and said, I'm ashamed of what my players did on that plane to a Hall of Famer. We're going to handle this internally. But I'll tell you what, that won't be tolerated here, not on my watch. And if anyone's got a problem with it, they can come see me personally. In a city like Boston, a manager with nuts like that called out his players. Let me backtrack a little bit on that. Because Bobby Valentine did that with Will Middlebrooks. Nice play, Will. And that backfired. But that backfired because that slug, that slime, that bastard snake, Dustin Pedroia, made it a big deal. Oh, he'll learn. We don't handle things like that here. That's not how we do things. Bobby will learn.
Can I go home?
I don't think a lot of people would have gave a shit about that story if Dustin Pedroia didn't make it a story by telling him, oh, he'll learn. Oh, he'll get it. Oh, yeah, the boss, he'll learn how the employees do things. I mean, Bobby Valentine's a joke. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here, kicking the tires for Bobby Valentine by any means. But Jesus Christ, he's the manager. You're the player. Do your job. Assume your position. Play second base. Shut the fuck up. Be a leader if you're going to be one, but you're not. That's why you always kind of played little sister to David Ortiz. And be like, yeah, what he said. That kind of thing. Fraud. Dustin Pedroia. I've been saying it for years. That moment in 2012 was when I said, the laser show, this guy sucks. He could go too. He's part of the problem. You got Josh Beckett and John Lackey and those idiots drinking beer and eating chicken and not giving a shit about the game. And this guy, Dustin Pedroia, just thinks that, oh yeah, the players, yeah, we run things. Like, fuck off. You're part of the problem. The guy's never gotten better at it either. He's never been any better of a leader since then. Become worse. Manny Machado, oh hey, that wasn't me, that was them. You know me, I would have done it different. That's not me, that's them. And then, hey, what happened with Machado? What do you think about this?
Can I go home?
That's what the "Can I Go Home" was from. Oh, is there an issue with do you have a problem with the way your teammates handled it? Oh,
can I go home?
Fuck you. Fucking John Farrell and The Lazy Show. Like, that's what it is now. The Boston Red Sox. I mean, luckily John Farrell's gone. And no, Nick Cafardo, you dink. It's not because I don't like him, right? That's why I don't want him to have a job. I'm not a fan of John Farrell. I'm a fan of the Boston Red Sox. Barely. Because of John Farrell. That team is unlikable. They don't play hard. They don't try hard. The team sucks. And that's on the players. And that's on Dombrowski. And that's on the fucking PR-friendly John Henry fucking shitstorm that they've created. Dustin Pedroia is a part of the problem. And he has been since there's been one in Boston. That's still true. That still reigns true from the first Dave Speaks about Dustin Pedroia. John Farrell, Nick Cafardo, deserve to be fired. Judge him amongst his peers, not amongst his fans. Grady Little, big moment, left the pitcher in too long in the playoffs, blew the series. Fired. Terry Francona loses his locker room. Fired. Another moment for John Farrell. Pinch running a pitcher into a game and losing him basically for the rest of his career because Stephen Wright has not been the same since. John Farrell ruined a guy that was probably going to win the Cy Young. He was like 10-0 at the time? 10-1? Ridiculous. John Farrell, look at the moments. That's what this is about. Go 5 years. all the way back. One World Series win. Thank you, David Ortiz. Drop to your knees, bow your head, put your hands together. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. Right? Last place. First place, swept in the playoffs. Stephen Wright could have helped you, but that's right. His shoulder was all tore up because you're a dink. And then another first place finish, one win in the playoffs, and then you lose it because you left Chris Sale in too long. And guys like David Price are here to stay, at least for a year. Next year's opt-out, opt-in thing is going to be real interesting. Guys like David Price is why I hate the Boston Red Sox. But I'll tell you what, he showed all the way up. He went in the bullpen like a nice guy, like a good old pal of yours, did you solid, and he pitched really well. In fact, he registered your only win in the postseason for the past 2 years. 4 years. We've won playoff game in 4 years. You're fired. That happens. I sound like fucking Donald Trump now, like he's fired. He's fired. But John Farrell, you deserve it. You do deserve it. Not because we don't like you. Not because I want to see your livelihood taken away. I just don't want you to have this job. I want you to go on ESPN and be a stiff because you don't have any personality. And I want you to commentate on games and everyone will make fun of you like we do Troy Aikman or Phil Simms or whoever. That's what I want you to do. I want you to go be bad at something else. I don't want you to lose your livelihood, Nick Cafardo. I just don't want you to be the manager of a team that I'm rooting for because I think you're a bad manager. That is not that far-fetched. That's not that evil. Boston media can be tough. Boston fans can be tough. No, I just don't want you to be the manager of a team if you're going to fucking ruin it. And Dave Dombrowski, you're real close. You're real close. I like half the stuff you do. It's real tough. It is real tough watching Travis Shaw dinger his way around the league. But I like Devers. So, okay. All right. We're in good shape. I like Chris Sale. I do like Craig Kimbrell. Okay. All right. We'll see. We'll see where they are. A couple of years. I'm interested by Dombrowski. I'm nervous. Cautiously optimistic, I'll say. But John Farrell, for all you Nick Cafardos out there that think that guy deserved to keep his job, and I'll blame the players. They didn't play. You're right, the players didn't, but also he didn't manage, and that's his job. He won games with the least amount of home runs in the biggest home run era. Yeah. So, congratulations to the guys that that batted well enough to win those games. Congratulations. John Farrell was in a no-win and a no-lose situation. If the Red Sox are good, he stays. And if the Red Sox are bad, he gets fired. And that, my friends, is the ball and chain of being a manager in baseball. In this week's water's wet, fire's hot, the sky is blue, and grass is green, managers barely get the credit, but always get the blame. This has been another episode of Hashtag Dave Speaks, brought to you by the B.S.N Network. Check out the Boston Sports Nerds podcast for more similar topics, content, every Thursday on the B.S.N Network. You can find that right on iTunes. All on the same feed. We've added the Box Seat Boys, which put out a really, really good podcast. What the BS Nerds lack in baseball talk. is more than made up for in the Boxy Boys. They do a great show. It's not just baseball, though. They do everything. They did some college football. They did some NBA MVP predictions. Their first show up on the feed is up. Their first show on the network is here. The Boxy Boys are here. WECP is going strong. Jerry made his return. That's exciting. Aaron's kind of got a whole cast of characters going on right now. Occasionally me. You can hear me there sometimes. And in real exciting news, this is for me the most exciting. Boxy Boys coming on was a really big deal. But now we got another project coming, and it's just like we're always moving forward. I'm always thinking. I'm always working. The 4-Star Sports Bar Review Podcast. That's coming to you this Monday, bi-weekly. Every other Monday. The same weekend that you get Dave Speaks is the same week that you get 4-Star Sports Bar Review Podcast. You can listen to me on Sunday, bitch about somebody or something, and then you can listen to me on Monday, rave about some place, some chicken wings. Like, I mean, you got to really like me to listen to me that much. But I am with my good buddy Kevin, who's been on Dave Speaks now 2 or 3 times. He does a good job, and we're really excited. The first place we're going to be going is the Bow and Arrow, Mohegan Sun. So you can check that out Monday. That'll be up. Really excited for that podcast. I don't know a lot of food review podcasts. I'm sure they're out there. There's always something. But yeah, this is going to be all mom and pop style sports bars. Shouldn't say mom and pop, like this one's in Mohegan Sun. But it's not a Buffalo Wild Wings. It's not a Aruga's. It's not like a Hooters. It's not a major chain sports bar. So we're going to be doing that. We're going to go around most of, southern New England. That's where we're from. We live in Connecticut. I hit some of Connecticut's things. And Kevin's from Rhode Island, so we go hit some of Rhode Island. And, when we need to take a ride out to Massachusetts or New Hampshire for something different, of course, we'll be doing that. So that'll be a bi-weekly podcast every other Monday, the same week the Dave Speaks comes out. So if you're listening to this today on a Sunday, then you'll hear from me tomorrow. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Tell me what you think. John Farrell deserved to be fired or not? Am I just an asshole? Am I the guy that Nick Cafardo was talking about? I'll let you decide, I guess.
Shut up,